I want to turn this over to our executive producer, Daniel Marins, who's got some questions for you as well. Daniel, take it away.
Bryan, I understand that you are opposed to allowing women into combat in the United States military. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
And why do you feel that way?
Well, I'm looking at a piece this morning, David, as a matter of fact, written by Stephanie Gutman. She wrote this piece, Kinder, Gentler Military, on the pages of the New Republic, which, as you are aware, is not a bastion of conservatism. And she says this: the average female is 5 inches shorter than the male soldier, has half the upper body strength, lower aerobic capacity, and 37% less muscle mass. That's a woman saying that on the pages of the New Republic. I agree with her. She just
and yet we now have two entering members of Congress, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard from Hawaii and Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth from Illinois, who did serve in one of the units where combat was already permitted, and they served honorably and indeed were in some cases injured or wounded. My question is, isn't that just self-selecting then at a certain point? Obviously, if there are some women who tend to be of slighter build, then they will be less inclined or will not survive the rigors of military training.
Well, I give you the testimony of U.S. Marine Captain Katie Petronio. She's as tough as they come. She was a combat engineer officer. She said serving in combat broke her down. She pointed out that women are simply far more prone to injury than men. In her last stint in Afghanistan, it was so grueling that after 7 months, she, as a woman, had lost a large amount of muscle mass, and she didn't have a lot to begin with.
But so we should be making that choice. We should be making that choice for women. We're making that choice. We know better than women.
Broken in a short amount of time.
Bryan, do we know better than women, though? Should we be making that choice for them? Should we be telling them that we know best?
Yeah, well, David, the point of combat is to have your strongest soldiers, the ones that have the most stamina, the ones that have the most upper body strength, and God simply did not design the skeletal or muscular structure of a woman for those kind of rigors. So it puts
but I'm glad you mentioned God. I'm glad you mentioned God. Bryan, I'm glad you mentioned God because I'm going back to my biblical education, and I'm remembering that in the book of Judges, the prophet Deborah led the people of Israel into military battle decisively, and in fact, Barak the son of Abinoam, turned to her specifically because of her military prowess. And in fact, later on, so does God not have good military sense?
Well, actually, David, you're wrong about that. Deborah was a judge. She directed Barak to take the troops into battle. He wouldn't go unless she went along as his rabbit's foot. She was along as a good luck charm. She didn't engage in the battle. Barak and the male soldiers of Israel did, and
that's an unorthodox reading. That's a very unorthodox reading.
What Deborah said to Barak is, because you were such a wuss, because you were such a wimp here, then the glory for this battle is going to go to a woman, and that was to Jael, who was a housewife who drove a tent peg through the temple of the military commander that sought refuge in her home.
Absolutely, Jael. In other words, either way, though, the military hero of that story was a woman, and that's in the Bible. But I want to set that aside for a second because I want to pivot. Speaking of militaries that do have women in combat, considered one of the most excellent militaries in the world, certainly from a technical perspective, from just the pure performance, not necessarily a value or moral judgment, is the Israeli military, and they certainly allow women in many combat units, including Air Force pilots. But I want to pivot. What did you think of the Israeli? What did you think?
By the way, this is.
Let me interject.
Also, Bryan, this is Daniel Marins who's speaking to you. It's Daniel.
To put 3% of their combat forces are women. 3%. Canada's been experimenting with it. They have 2.4% of their infantry, their combat soldiers, are women because the hazards, the risks are just too great.